Harrison Caldwell stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Manhattan penthouse, gazing down at the glittering city below. Christmas lights twinkled from every building, casting a warm glow over the snow-dusted streets. It was Christmas Eve, and the world seemed alive with joy and anticipation. Yet inside his 12,000-square-foot residence, silence reigned supreme. At 73 years old, Harrison had everything money could buy: priceless art on the walls, a wine cellar worth millions, garages full of luxury cars he rarely drove. But tonight, surrounded by opulence, he felt utterly alone. His reflection in the window showed a gaunt man with silver hair and tired eyes, dressed in an expensive smoking jacket that suddenly felt like a costume. His wife, Margaret, had passed away 5 years ago, and their only son, Richard, had died in a car accident shortly after. They'd been estranged at the time over Harrison's workaholic tendencies, and that regret sat like a stone in his chest. The staff had been dismissed for the holiday. Harrison insisted they spend time with their families, even as he dreaded his own solitude. His phone sat silent on the marble countertop. No calls, no messages. The business associates who'd once clamored for his attention had families of their own now. The silence was deafening. He thought about calling his assistant to arrange a flight somewhere, anywhere, but what was the point? Loneliness followed him like a shadow. Harrison walked to the dining room where a catering company had left an elaborate Christmas dinner for one: roasted duck, truffle potatoes, chocolate torte, all growing cold. He couldn't bring himself to eat. Instead, he poured a scotch and returned to the window. Outside, he watched families hurrying home, children tugging their parents toward toy store windows, couples sharing scarves against the cold. Once, that had been him and Margaret, young and in love, before ambition had consumed him. Before he'd prioritized board meetings over bedtime stories, acquisitions over anniversaries. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 8 times, each gong echoing through the empty rooms. Harrison closed his eyes, and for a moment, he could almost hear it, the phantom sounds of the life he'd never made time to live. Children's laughter that never filled these halls. Grandchildren who never existed. He'd built an empire but forgotten to build a home. 20 blocks away, Marcus Chun huddled with his 6-year-old daughter, Lily, in the doorway of a closed bookstore. The cardboard they'd been using as bedding was soaked through from the earlier snowfall, and Lily's thin jacket, the thickest thing she owned, was doing little against the December cold. Marcus wrapped his arms around her, trying to transfer his body heat to her shivering frame. "Daddy, is Santa going to find us here?" Lily asked, her voice small and hopeful. Her breath came out in little clouds. Marcus felt his heart crack a little more. He pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her dark hair. "Santa's magic, sweetheart. He always finds good little girls no matter where they are." It was a lie, but what else could he say? That they'd lost everything when his construction company went bankrupt after his business partner embezzled their funds? That their apartment had been foreclosed on 3 months ago? That he'd been frantically searching for work, but no one wanted to hire someone without an address, without clean clothes, without hope in his eyes? Marcus had been a different person a year ago, a successful contractor with a nice home in Queens, a car, savings for Lily's college fund. He'd been so proud when he started his own business after his wife, Lily's mother, had passed away from cancer. He was going to give his daughter the life Sarah would have wanted for her. But it had all crumbled so quickly. His phone buzzed with its last 2% of battery. A text from the shelter. "Full capacity. Try again after New Year's." Marcus deleted it before Lily could see. She didn't need to know they had nowhere to go. She still believed her daddy could fix anything. The streets were emptying now as families settled in for Christmas Eve. The smell of roasting turkey and pine wafted from the apartments above them, a cruel reminder of everything they'd lost. Lily shifted in his arms, looking up at him with those wide brown eyes, so much like her mother's. "Daddy, I'm really cold." Marcus stood, making a decision. They couldn't stay here tonight. The temperature was dropping, and Lily's lips were already taking on a bluish tinge that terrified him. He had maybe $30 in his pocket, everything left from his last odd job. It wasn't enough for a motel room, not on Christmas Eve in Manhattan. But there had to be somewhere warm, somewhere safe. He'd heard about churches that open their doors, though most were already beyond capacity. Come on, baby girl. Let's go for a walk. We'll find somewhere better. Lily stood on wobbly legs, clutching the worn stuffed rabbit she'd had since she was a baby. Marcus took her small hand in his calloused one, and they started walking through the snowy streets. He had no plan, no destination. Just hoped that something, anything, would open up for them tonight. Harrison's penthouse occupied the entire top floor of the Caldwell Tower, one of the most prestigious addresses in Manhattan. But what most people didn't know was that Harrison often wandered down to the building's ground floor late at night, unable to sleep, passing time in the marble-floored lobby, where at least the night doorman provided some human contact. Tonight was no different. He rode the private elevator down, nodding to George, the overnight security guard who'd worked in the building for 15 years. "Merry Christmas, Mr. Caldwell," George said warmly. "Merry Christmas, George. Your family well?" Harrison made small talk for a few minutes before George's radio crackled with a call about a delivery entrance that needed checking. Left alone, Harrison wandered to the floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out onto Fifth Avenue. That's when he saw them, a man and a small child, walking slowly past the building. Something about them caught his attention. Perhaps it was the hour or the way the man kept looking around as if searching for something. Or maybe it was the little girl, who couldn't have been more than 6 or 7, practically dragging her feet with exhaustion. Harrison watched as they stopped just outside his building's entrance, and the man crouched down to speak with the child. Even from inside, Harrison could see the father's shoulders were hunched against more than just the cold. There was a weight to his posture that Harrison recognized, the burden of responsibility without resources. The little girl was crying now, wiping at her eyes with small fists. The father pulled her into an embrace, and Harrison saw his shoulders shake. The man was crying too, trying to hide it from his daughter. Something twisted in Harrison's chest. He'd seen plenty of homeless people in New York. You couldn't avoid them in a city this size, but he'd always looked away, written checks to charities to assuage his conscience, told himself the system would handle it. But tonight, on Christmas Eve, in his loneliness, something was different. Before he could second-guess himself, Harrison was pushing through the revolving door into the cold night air. The blast of winter hit him immediately. He'd forgotten a coat, was still in his house slippers and smoking jacket. The man looked up, startled, as Harrison approached. Up close, Harrison could see he was younger than he'd first appeared, maybe mid-30s, with dark hair and exhausted eyes. The little girl peeked out from behind her father's leg, clutching a ratty stuffed rabbit. "I'm sorry, sir," the man said quickly, straightening up. "We weren't trying to bother anyone. We're just passing through." His voice was hoarse, defensive. Harrison held up his hands. "You're not bothering anyone. I saw you from inside. It's freezing out here." He looked down at the little girl, who was shivering violently despite being bundled against her father. "Are you all right?" The man's jaw tightened. Harrison recognized pride when he saw it. "We're fine. Thank you for your concern." Marcus knew what he must look like to this well-dressed older man, some rich guy in fancy clothes, probably about to tell them to move along, that they were bad for property values. He'd gotten used to those looks over the past few months, the way people's eyes would slide away from him and Lily as if homelessness might be contagious. He started to turn away, to take Lily's hand and continue their aimless walking, but the old man spoke again. "Please. I don't mean to intrude, but it's Christmas Eve. It's going to drop below freezing tonight." Harrison surprised himself with his own boldness. "I have more space than I know what to do with upstairs. Hot food. Warm beds. No strings attached." Marcus turned back, suspicion clear in his eyes. "Why would you do that? You don't know us." It was a fair question, one Harrison wasn't sure he could answer. "Maybe because I've been sitting alone in a penthouse full of everything money can buy, and it occurred to me that none of it means anything. Maybe because I have a son who," his voice caught, "who I'll never get to make things right with. Maybe because it's Christmas Eve, and you have a daughter who shouldn't be out in the cold." Marcus studied him for a long moment. Every instinct screamed not to trust this, Random wealthy strangers didn't invite homeless people to their penthouses. But Lily was shaking so hard now that he could feel it through his own body, and her lips were turning blue. He'd heard about hypothermia, about how children could deteriorate quickly in the cold. Pride was one thing, but Lily's safety was another. Just for tonight? Marcus asked quietly. Just until we can figure out somewhere else to go? Harrison nodded. Just for tonight. Or longer if you need. I'm Harrison Caldwell. He extended his hand. Marcus hesitated, then shook it. The older man's grip was firm, and there was something in his eyes, a genuine loneliness that Marcus recognized because he saw it in his own mirror when he found one. Marcus Chun. This is my daughter, Lily. Lily looked up at Harrison with wide eyes. Are you Santa Claus's helper? She asked, her voice small. Harrison felt something crack in his chest. I suppose I could be for tonight. He looked at Marcus. Please. Come inside where it's warm. We can talk upstairs. Marcus made his decision. He squeezed Lily's hand and nodded. Okay. Thank you. They followed Harrison through the golden revolving door into a lobby that was so warm and bright that Lily gasped. Marble floors gleamed. A massive Christmas tree stood in the corner, decorated with thousands of white lights and gold ornaments. It was like stepping into another world. George looked up from the security desk, his eyes widening slightly at the sight of Mr. Caldwell with obvious homeless guests, but to his credit, he simply nodded. Evening, Mr. Caldwell. Evening, George. These are my guests, Mr. Chun and his daughter, Lily. They'll be staying with me. Harrison's tone left no room for questions. The private elevator that Harrison led them to was larger than some of the rooms Marcus had lived in as a child. Mirrors lined the walls, and Lily stared at their reflections. A little girl who looked too thin in clothes that had seen better days, a father who looked 10 years older than his 34 years, and an elderly billionaire in velvet house clothes and slippers. It was a bizarre tableau. Marcus caught sight of himself properly for the first time in days. His beard had grown scraggly, his hair was unwashed, and there were dark circles under his eyes. He looked away, shame burning in his chest. Lily, however, was transfixed by the elevator's golden buttons. How high does it go? She asked Harrison. All the way to the top, Harrison replied, pressing the button marked PH. Where the clouds live. Lily's eyes went wide. Harrison smiled, a real smile, the first and longer than he could remember. Not quite that high, but close. You'll be able to see the whole city. The elevator rose smoothly, and Marcus watched the numbers climb. His stomach churned with a mixture of hope and dread. What was he doing? Bringing his daughter to a stranger's home. But what choice did he have? The doors opened directly into Harrison's penthouse, and Marcus felt his breath catch. He'd known they were going somewhere nice. You didn't have a private elevator in a Fifth Avenue building otherwise, but nothing had prepared him for this. The foyer alone was bigger than his old apartment. Original artwork hung on the walls, pieces Marcus recognized from Lily's library books. A Monet. A Picasso sketch. Sculptures that probably cost more than he'd made in his entire life. Oh my, Lily whispered, clutching her rabbit tighter. Harrison seemed to see the space through their eyes and looked almost embarrassed. It's too much, I know. My wife used to say I bought space instead of happiness. She was right. He gestured for them to follow. Come. Let's get you both warmed up. Are you hungry? Marcus opened his mouth to decline, old pride rising up, but his stomach betrayed him with a loud growl. Lily hadn't eaten since that morning when he'd managed to get her a muffin from a coffee shop's day-old basket. We don't want to impose, Marcus said, even as his feet followed Harrison deeper into the penthouse. You're not imposing. I'm inviting. There's a difference. Harrison led them to a kitchen that looked like something from a magazine. Marble countertops, professional-grade appliances, and sitting on the counter were covered silver dishes. The caterers left Christmas dinner. I haven't touched it. Please help yourselves to whatever you'd like. Lily looked up at her father with pleading eyes, and Marcus felt his resolve crumble. Okay, he said quietly. Thank you. This is very kind. Harrison waved this away. I'll show you to rooms where you can clean up, get comfortable. There should be clothes upstairs that might fit, my son's old things. Take whatever you need. As Harrison led them upstairs to the guest wing, Marcus felt reality beginning to bend. Just hours ago, he'd been huddling in a doorway, trying to shield his daughter from the cold and wondering how much longer he could protect her from the truth of their situation. Now he was walking through a penthouse that probably took up more square footage than most people's homes, being offered food and shelter by a billionaire who seemed as lost as he was. Harrison opened a door to a bedroom suite that took Marcus's breath away. A king-size bed with what looked like Egyptian cotton sheets, a sitting area with a fireplace, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. An attached bathroom visible through another door, all marble and gold fixtures. This is the main guest room, Harrison said. There's a smaller bedroom connected through that door, he pointed. That might be good for Lily. It has twin beds and used to be where my son would stay when... He trailed off, something painful crossing his face. When he visited, Lily had already wandered to the window, pressing her nose against the glass. Daddy, look. You can see the whole park. There's the ice skating rink. Marcus joined her, and together they looked out at the glittering city. From this height, New York looked magical. All the dirt and desperation hidden beneath a blanket of snow and Christmas lights. It was easy to forget from up here that just blocks away people were suffering. Harrison cleared his throat. The bathroom has everything you should need. Towels, toiletries. Take your time. There's a robe hanging on the door, and I'll bring up some clothes that might fit. He paused. When you're ready, come downstairs. We'll eat. After Harrison left, Marcus stood in the center of the room, overwhelmed. Lily tugged at his hand. Daddy, can I take a bath? A real bath with hot water. Tears pricked Marcus's eyes. It had been months since they'd had access to more than public restroom sinks and the occasional shower at a gym where he'd let his membership lapse. Yeah, baby girl. Let's get you cleaned up. The bathroom was obscene in its luxury, a soaking tub, a separate rainfall shower, heated floors. Marcus started the bath, and the hot water that poured out seemed like a miracle. He helped Lily out of her dirty clothes, his heart breaking at how thin she'd gotten, at the bruise on her shin from where she'd tripped on the street last week. As she sank into the warm water, Lily sighed with relief. This is like heaven, Daddy. Marcus sat on the edge of the tub, washing her hair with shampoo that probably cost more than he had in his pocket. Yes, sweetheart. It is. While Lily played with the bubbles, Marcus let himself lean against the bathroom wall and finally, for the first time in months, allowed himself to break down. Silent tears streamed down his face as the weight of everything crashed over him. The failure, the fear, the exhaustion, the relief. An hour later, clean and dressed in borrowed clothes that were slightly too large, Marcus and Lily made their way back downstairs. Harrison had changed as well, now wearing slacks and a cardigan, and he'd set the dining room table with fine china and silver. The Christmas feast had been laid out: roasted duck, glazed ham, truffle potatoes, green beans almondine, fresh baked rolls, and half a dozen other dishes that made Marcus's stomach growl audibly. Please sit, Harrison said, gesturing to the table. He'd set 3 places, all close together at one end of the massive table rather than spreading them out. It made the meal feel more intimate, less overwhelming. Lily climbed into a chair, her eyes wide. Is this all for us? It was going to go to waste otherwise, Harrison said, beginning to serve food onto Lily's plate. I hope you're hungry. They ate in silence for the first few minutes, Marcus trying to pace himself even though he wanted to devour everything in sight, Lily making small sounds of pleasure at each new taste. Harrison watched them with an expression Marcus couldn't quite read, sad, but also somehow peaceful. Finally, Harrison spoke. How long have you been on the streets? Marcus stiffened, his fork pausing halfway to his mouth. He glanced at Lily, who was focused on her food. 3 months, he said quietly. Since September. Harrison nodded. What happened? If you don't mind me asking. Marcus set down his fork, his appetite suddenly gone despite his empty stomach. But there was something about this man, about this surreal Christmas Eve, that made him want to talk. Maybe it was because Harrison was a stranger, or maybe it was because Marcus was so tired of carrying it all alone. I had a construction company, Marcus began. Small operation, but it was growing. I'd worked construction since I was 18, worked my way up, and finally had enough to start my own business. My wife, Sarah, she believed in me. He smiled sadly. She died of cancer 2 years ago. Lily was only 4. I promised myself I'd make a good life for our daughter, that I'd build something substantial. He took a breath. My business partner, a guy I'd known for years, he embezzled everything. Cleaned out the business accounts, forged my signature on loans, disappeared. By the time I realized what was happening, it was too late. The company went bankrupt. We lost the house. I've been looking for work, but without an address, without references, without... He gestured helplessly. It's impossible. Harrison listened without interrupting, his expression thoughtful. When Marcus finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I built an empire worth billions. I started with nothing, less than nothing, and I worked every day of my life to build something that would last. And you know what I have to show for it. He gestured around the empty penthouse. This. Empty rooms and silence. After dinner, Harrison suggested they move to the living room where a fire crackled in the fireplace. Lily, full of food and warm for the first time in months, was starting to nod off. Marcus carried her to the plush sofa, where she curled up with her stuffed rabbit, fighting to keep her eyes open. Harrison poured coffee for himself and Marcus, then settled into an armchair across from them. The only light came from the fire and the city glow through the windows, creating an intimate atmosphere that encouraged confession. Tell me about your son, Marcus said quietly. If you want to. Harrison stared into his coffee for a long moment. Richard. He was brilliant, funny, kind, before I drove that out of him with my expectations. He looked up. I was so obsessed with building my business, with proving myself, that I missed everything that mattered. His school plays, his baseball games, his graduation. I was always working, always planning the next acquisition, the next deal. My wife, Margaret, she tried to tell me. She begged me to slow down, to be present. But I thought I was doing it for them, providing for them. He laughed bitterly. Richard grew up resenting me. We fought constantly once he was old enough to push back. He wanted to be a teacher, said he wanted to help kids, make a difference. I told him he was wasting his potential, that he should come into the business, make something of himself. Harrison's voice cracked. We didn't speak for the last 3 years of his life. He died in a car accident 5 years ago, and the last words we exchanged were in anger. He was 32. Marcus watched Lily sleep, her small chest rising and falling peacefully. I'm sorry, he said. That's a heavy burden to carry. My wife died 6 months after Richard. The doctors said it was her heart, but I think she died of grief. And I was left with all of this, he gestured around, and no one to share it with. No one to forgive me. They sat in silence, 2 men from completely different worlds, united in loss and regret. Finally, Marcus spoke. Sarah, my wife, she used to say that the only thing that really matters is love. That's it. Not money, not success, not any of it. Just love, showing up for the people who matter, being present, making them feel seen. He smiled. She was a kindergarten teacher. Made barely any money, but she was the happiest person I knew. She loved Lily so much. She sounds like she was remarkable, Harrison said. She was. And she'd be so disappointed in me now, at how I've failed our daughter. Marcus's voice was tight with emotion. Lily deserves better than sleeping in doorways and eating from trash cans. She deserves a childhood, a home, stability. And I can't give her any of it. Harrison leaned forward. Marcus, what happened to you wasn't your fault. You were betrayed by someone you trusted. That doesn't make you a failure. Doesn't it? A good father would have seen it coming, would have protected his business, would have. Harrison held up his hand, stopping Marcus mid-sentence. I'm going to tell you something about failure. About 35 years ago, I made a terrible investment. Put everything I had into a real estate deal that went south. Lost it all. had to declare bankruptcy. I was living in a studio apartment in Queens with my wife and infant son, working 3 jobs just to keep the lights on. Marcus looked surprised. I didn't know that. Most people don't. It's not the story I wanted to tell, the self-made billionaire who overcame nothing. But the truth is, I failed spectacularly. And do you know what saved me? Margaret. She believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. She worked as a waitress, took night shifts, held our family together while I rebuilt. And I repaid her by working myself into the grave and ignoring her and our son. Harrison set down his coffee cup. The point is, failure doesn't define you unless you let it. What defines you is what you do next, how you treat the people who matter. And from what I've seen tonight, you're a good father. You're here, you're trying, you're protecting your daughter as best you can. That's what matters. Marcus felt tears threatening again. I just want to give her a chance. A normal life. Harrison was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was thoughtful. What if I made you a proposition? Not charity. I think we both have too much pride for that. But a business arrangement. Marcus looked up warily. What kind of arrangement? I have a problem, Harrison began. I'm 73 years old, and I've realized I've spent my entire life building an empire with no one to pass it to, no legacy beyond money. I have charitable foundations, yes, but they're run by boards and committees. There's no heart to them, no connection. He leaned forward. What I'm proposing is this. Come work for me. Not in some make-work position, but actually help me figure out what to do with all of this. Help me build something that matters. You have construction experience, business management skills. I need someone who understands what it's like to struggle, who knows what real people need. Marcus shook his head. That sounds like charity with extra steps. It's not. I'm offering you a real job with real responsibilities and a real salary. You'd be helping me restructure my charitable work, identify projects that need funding, oversee construction of housing developments for low-income families. God knows I have the money and you have the expertise and the perspective. It would be legitimate work. Harrison's eyes were intent. In exchange, I provide you with an apartment in one of my buildings, separate from here, your own space, and a salary commensurate with the position. Lily would have stability, could enroll in a good school. You'd have a chance to rebuild. Marcus wanted to say, yes, so badly it hurt. But something held him back. Why? Why would you do this for us? You don't know us. Harrison glanced at Lily, sleeping peacefully on the sofa. Because it's Christmas Eve, and I've been given a chance to do something that matters. Because my son will never forgive me, but maybe I can help another father be better than I was. Because I'm tired of being alone in all this wealth. Christmas morning dawned clear and cold over Manhattan. Marcus woke in the guest bedroom, disoriented for a moment before memory flooded back. He sat up quickly, panicking. Had it all been a dream? But no, he was in a bed with Egyptian cotton sheets, in a penthouse overlooking Central Park. He could hear Lily's soft breathing from the connected room. Moving quietly, Marcus found Harrison already awake in the kitchen, making coffee. The older man was wearing reading glasses and going through papers at the counter. He looked up when Marcus entered. Good morning. I hope you slept well. Better than I have in months, Marcus admitted. Thank you again for... Let's not spend the day thanking each other, Harrison interrupted gently. I have something for you. He slid a folder across the counter. My lawyers drew this up overnight. Yes, I called them on Christmas Eve, and yes, they were annoyed, but I pay them enough to handle it. It's a contract. Employment terms, salary, benefits, housing arrangement. Look it over. If you want your own lawyer to review it, I'll pay for that too. Marcus opened the folder with shaking hands. The numbers he saw made his head spin. The salary was more than fair, generous, actually. The benefits package included health insurance for him and Lily. The housing was in a building in the Upper West Side, a 2-bedroom apartment. This is too much, Marcus whispered. It's market rate for the work I'm asking you to do. I checked. Harrison poured coffee and handed a mug to Marcus. I'm not being charitable, Marcus. I'm being selfish. I need this as much as you do, maybe more. I need a reason to get up in the morning. I need to do something that matters before I die. And I think, if you're willing, we can help each other. Before Marcus could respond, they heard small footsteps, and Lily appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes.
Daddy?
Is this still real? Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. Yeah, baby girl. It's real. Harrison smiled at Lily. Merry Christmas, Lily. I hope you like chocolate chip pancakes because I'm making enough for an army. As they ate breakfast together, Lily chattering excitedly about the view and the snow and whether Santa had found her here, Marcus found himself studying Harrison. The old man's eyes, which had been so sad and empty last night, had a spark of life in them now. Purpose, Marcus realized. They'd given each other purpose. After breakfast, while Lily explored the penthouse under Harrison's watchful eye, Marcus called the only friend he had left from his old life, his former foreman, Tom, who'd been trying to help him find work. Tom, it's Marcus. Merry Christmas. Marcus. Jesus, man, I've been worried about you. Where are you? Are you and Lily okay? Marcus found himself laughing. Actually laughing for the first time in months. We're more than okay. Tom, you're not going to believe what happened. That afternoon, the three of them walked through Central Park, Harrison in a proper coat this time, Lily bundled in a new jacket Harrison had ordered delivered that morning, insisting it wasn't a gift but a practical necessity. They watched children playing in the snow, couples skating on Woolman Rink, families gathered around food carts. Do you know what I haven't done in 20 years? Harrison said suddenly. I haven't built a snowman. Lily's eyes went wide. Really? That's so sad. She tugged on his hand. Come on. We can build one together. Daddy's really good at it. And so there, in Central Park on Christmas Day, a billionaire, a formerly homeless contractor, and a 6-year-old girl built a snowman together. Other park-goers smiled as they passed, seeing what they assumed was a grandfather with his son and granddaughter, enjoying a simple Christmas moment. They weren't entirely wrong. As Harrison helped Lily place stones for the snowman's eyes, Marcus felt something shift in his chest, the first stirring of hope he'd felt in months. Maybe they could all find a way forward together. Maybe, out of loneliness and desperation, and a chance encounter on Christmas Eve, something beautiful could grow. Daddy, look. Lily called. We did it. He's perfect. The snowman wasn't perfect. It was lopsided and the stick arms were uneven, but as Marcus looked at his daughter's beaming face and Harrison's genuine smile, he thought maybe perfect was overrated anyway. Sometimes on Christmas, the best miracles were the imperfect, unexpected ones that showed up exactly when you needed them. That evening, after signing the contract and making plans to move into their new apartment after the new year, Marcus and Lily prepared to spend one more night in the guest room. Harrison seemed almost reluctant to see them go to bed, as if afraid the companionship might evaporate overnight. Harrison, Marcus said, pausing in the doorway. Thank you. Not just for the job or the apartment. For seeing us. For stopping. Harrison's eyes were bright. Thank you for reminding me that it's never too late. That even on the darkest night, something can change. Upstairs, as Marcus tucked Lily into bed, she looked up at him with sleepy eyes. Daddy, I told you Santa would find us. Marcus kissed her forehead. You were right, sweetheart. You were absolutely right. And as he turned out the light, Marcus thought about how Christmas miracles weren't always wrapped in shiny paper with perfect bows. Sometimes they came in the form of a lonely old man who'd remembered, just in time, what really mattered. Sometimes they came from stepping out into the cold and choosing in that moment to be kind. Downstairs, Harrison stood at his windows once more, but tonight the view looked different. The city still glittered, but it no longer seemed like a taunt. Tomorrow, he would start figuring out how to use his wealth to truly help people. He'd work with Marcus to identify projects, build housing, create opportunities. He'd be present, engaged, purposeful. His phone buzzed, a text from George, the night doorman. Whatever you did tonight, Mr. Caldwell, keep doing it. You look 10 years younger. Harrison smiled and typed back, Merry Christmas, George. To new beginnings. In the quiet of the penthouse, no longer quite so empty, Harrison Caldwell sat down in his favorite chair and, for the first time in 5 years, felt something he'd almost forgotten: contentment. Not happiness exactly, not yet, but the possibility of it, shimmering on the horizon like the first light of dawn. And that, he thought, was more than enough.